This is Ed Franklin with your Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. Always you can contact me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. I get some great guests on this podcast, but today, this kid, you're going to be real impressed when you're done listening to this young man talk about what he's doing. His name is Damani, and I met him at a young entrepreneur event where they give these kids an opportunity to build a business and kind of learn about business and learn from other entrepreneurs that are older than them. And it's just this great program where these kids, it's something they wouldn't learn in high school, but they learn it in this organization that one of my friends put together. And it's also a global organization. So Damani, I mean, I heard you speak at this event and I was so impressed. I'm like, I got to get you on my podcast. So anyway, welcome. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know it's not easy. By the way, this young man is a sophomore in high school. And when you listen to him, you'll forget that he's a young man in high school because he sounds like a seasoned veteran already. So Damani, welcome to my show, man.
Hey, Ed, thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
So I guess tell me a little bit about that entrepreneur program, kind of what you got out of it and how if it was what you got you started and what you're doing, or if it was a booster shot or what it was. Tell me a little bit about what's up.
Yeah. So I actually have a musical background before the entrepreneurship program, but I can start from my musical background if you like.
Tell me everything, man. I want to listen. I'm one of those people. Everybody in the world, I got news for you, wants to be able to play music and be musical and all that, right? But we don't all have those, whether they're natural skills. And I know you work really hard. I don't think that everything comes natural. I know you put a lot of time into this, but we all want to be like that. So yeah, tell me from the beginning how this whole thing kind of got started.
Yeah. So I first started with my parents, obviously with the financial support, and then also I'm an EDM and a hip hop artist, and my parents, there was a heavy influence of EDM in our house. My parents have been attending concerts and events for the last 10 years and following the mainstream and underground EDM artists. So
you're gonna have to. I'm a little bit, but what's EDM?
Sorry. Yeah, no. So EDM is it's become a main genre now. It's electronic dance music.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
I'm probably older than your parents, bro. There's a good chance I'm older than your parents.
Yeah. So, but no, EDM. So EDM has kind of evolved over the last 20 years. It's gotten to a point now where it's becoming more mainstream. But it previously hasn't been, and it's kind of been mixing with the pop genre. So a lot of EDM artists are collaborating with pop artists, and that's kind of why it's become mainstream. But yeah, so I'm not, are you familiar with Avicii or Kygo or
a little bit?
Yeah,
I've heard.
Yeah. So it all started with that. My parents both had somewhat of a musical background, and they wanted to get me started in classical training from a young age. So
nice.
When I was 5 years old, I started on the violin. I was playing the violin learning with the violin with the Suzuki method. And for several years, I played with a teacher, and I took lessons. And in the fifth grade, I think I started writing poetry. I started writing poetry in my English class.
Wow.
And I showed my parents my poem that I put together for class for an assignment that we were doing. The poem's called Blue. It was we had to basically choose a color and then write about the color and use analogies, metaphor, all sorts of figurative language to kind of get across this idea of a fifth grade's perception of what this color really means, right? So I wrote this poem in English class, and I went home, I took it to my parents, and they were really impressed.
Oh, good.
And they didn't believe that I wrote it at first, and they started like searching the internet to look for where I got the poem from. And then I told them I was turning it in for an English class, and they said that, wow, that's really impressive. There may be something here. And they told me to write another poem, and it sort of spiraled from there. I wrote a lot of poetry over the next year.
How old were you when you did this?
I was in fifth grade when I did this.
Wow.
And then a year later, my sister, she's 2 years younger than me. She started playing the piano. She started taking lessons also with the Suzuki method, but for the piano. And then, sorry, I didn't explain. So the Suzuki method is kind of, uh, it's a method of learning different instruments. They teach guitar, violin and piano and other instruments based off of listening and
Okay.
hearing the sounds, being able to play back what you hear, and kind of interpreting different tonalities of songs. And then obviously there's an element of music reading, a note reading,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
music has. So yeah, so my sister started with the piano, and so we had the piano in our house, and I began improvising and started playing jazz chords. And my classical background in the violin sort of helped me have this foundation, so that I was able to pick up the piano really fast, to the point where I was playing Beethoven and
Oh, wow.
Mozart and more advanced pieces in a matter of months.
Isn't that kind of typical? Once you learn one instrument, it's a little easier to learn. It's kind of like languages. Once you learn one
Right,
language. Okay, good.
right. It's a process of like it's a it is a language, right?
Right.
Music is a language. I think it's overall, I think with the sheet music and the learning how to read notes, and then how to um there's a lot of similar aspects in string instruments as well.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, so after that, I was playing the piano for a while, and then I started taking piano lessons and voice lessons
Okay.
to kind of start being able to put things together and singing with the
So
piano. And
the nice thing here is this was really supported in your home, right? It wasn't like you didn't have
right,
to sell your parents on this, and I'm going to be a rock star, I'm going to be in music, and they didn't.
right.
No, you're going to go to school and you're going to be a doctor. So there was definitely some
No,
influence
yeah.
from your
Well, no,
parents.
I think I mean, there's a component of a lot of uh and I don't want to go down a wrong direction with
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I mean, with a lot of Asian American, Indian American families, um there's a huge focus on mathematics and science,
academics, right? Yeah,
academics, right? Academics in general. And I think my parents, having also had a musical background, and growing up, my dad grew up in Georgia and India and moved around a lot. My mom grew up in Riverside, and um, I think music was a thing that they really like fell back on. It was an
right.
outlet that really helped them, and they wanted to pass that on to the next generation, to me and my sister, to be able to have that artistic component, artistic side of our personality that we could really use to express ourselves. And with that, so I was singing and playing the piano at this time, and my voice was raw. It was a beginner's voice. I didn't have a naturally talented
Right.
voice. And then, but then I started I started I started doing a lot of improvisation, to the point where my parents were like, why don't we put him in this camp where I basically my sixth grade summer, I went to this camp that was hosted at a studio in Carlsbad, I think, that was basically um a camp where it was a program where they would put a group of 5 students together and basically form a band.
Okay.
So I was with 4 other students. It was a program that was meant for older kids. So I was with 4 other students who were 16, 15, 16, and 17. I was 12 at the time. So I was a little out of reach. It was hard to kind of contribute, because they're kind of just denying all of my
Sure.
everything I wanted to add. And but the program overall was, they basically said, we're going to take these 5 students and show them how to produce an original song from start to finish.
Okay.
So we started off with the components that were the songwriting and the writing of the instrumental pieces, and then we went on to the phase where it was actually performing the track, and then it was the mixing and the mastering, the sound engineering phase of the track. they walked us through everything and taught us the background of um, a lot of what goes on in those studios, right? A lot of what goes on behind the scenes to create the music that you hear on the radio. And it was really eye-opening. I was able to write a lot of the lyrics for the song, and I played the piano. I wrote my own piano piece, and I wrote my own violin piece, and the song came out surprisingly good. My parents were really intrigued by what this group of teenagers was able to put together, right, in a matter of a week. And so then from there, I kept on cultivating my musical foundation. I kept playing the piano and violin, and I started working with this live performer who was playing a lot of gigs down in downtown and North Park, and he was a client of my dad's. So my dad helped him, introduced me to him, and kind of he became my mentor and helped me put together a few songs, and taught me the production component on the DAW side of things, which is the digital audio workspace.
Okay.
So there's different digital audio workspaces. There's GarageBand, there's Logic, there's Ableton, which is what I use. At the time we were using Logic, and he was teaching me the back end of kind of how sounds are created. And it was a little bit of a different approach from going in a studio and recording the drums and the guitar and the bass, everything in the studio. This was kind of coming back, sitting behind the computer, and there was a component of it that was also recording, and I played the violin through the mic, and I sang as well, but a lot of it was producing on this workspace. And we used something called a MIDI keyboard, and we just had two monitors, and we're just sitting in his bedroom, in his house, is just bedroom in his house, and we were putting together original tracks. So then that kind of from there, I decided that I wanted to set something up like that at my house, and you can see it behind me.
Yeah.
The summer of 2020, I think, during quarantine, my parents decided that they wanted to support me in actually doing this whole process and learning how to do this whole process on my own, which was another step forward.
Yeah. Does your sister help you with this too? Is she involved at all with you?
No, she actually does dance, so she's
okay. She's just doing something else.
But I've incorporated on her on some of my songs and other things as well.
I want to come back to that in a minute. There's so many directions this conversation could go, because just being a layman, just a music lover, right? I just like to listen to music.
Yeah.
You never know how much work is put in on the back end, right? Even an athlete, the time Tom Brady puts in, or Brett Favre, or Michael Jordan put in, or LeBron.
Right.
People never understand all the work that goes into that fundamental stuff, right? That has to exist in order to get bigger, right? You have to have all these fundamental stuff.
There's a foundation, right?
And you are the epitome of why this podcast was developed, was that if you want to do something with your life, instead of just going to work every day and wishing you did something, you're one of these people. And your parents, God bless your parents for backing you up, right? So having 8 children, like I told you before we started, I was watching the school districts take music and art and all these things out of grasp of the kids. And I think there's a huge connection between those arts and intellect, right? And when you take all those arts, the music and an art piece and physical education and all those things, you take those, I think it affects their ability to be better academic students. You agree with that? I think there's a lot of connection between intellect and arts. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think it's actually, I think there's scientific studies, don't quote me on this, but it's really like the training that left brain. Really,
I agree. I think there is
function is that artistic side of everybody's artistic side, right? Training that, I think it's why a lot of instruments and things like that have been more influenced in the last 10 years, even like with parents and their kids, right? They want their kid to play the piano, right? And they want their kids to take lessons in the and learning how to read sheet music and learning how to play a musical instrument, because it trains that left brain function and makes everything else function better.
And my children, I tend to have more artistic painting, artist drawing. My grandson is an amazing artist. At 14, he can sit down and draw something for you. And I'm like, how the hell
Wow.
did you even conceive that in your head? You know, because I don't have that skill.
Right.
It's funny because I teach sales and I've been in sales a long time. And I always say that, you know, sales is really an art. Salesmen are very eccentric, right? We do things different ways. We can get to the end the same way as everybody else, but we communicate differently, and we have different skills than, you know, say you would or something. But
Right.
so then you put this studio in your house during COVID, during the quarantine. And I
Yeah.
just love that your parents are so behind you on this, because hats off to them for doing that.
Yeah, no, I think that that kind of transitions well into my next point. It's really like, so my dad is a businessman, and my mom does sales as well.
Okay.
So my mom sells insurance, and I think that I mean, the main kind of the main goal of my parents doing this for me, supporting it financially and with their time, is really because they wanted me to learn how to run a business.
Right.
Which kind of takes me to my next point. So with all of with everything set up at my house, I started to produce music, and I went through this whole process where I was producing art that had no structure. And it was an issue because every time I released my music, I was getting no traction. It was really hard to get people to it was really hard to catch people's attention, because I was able to create really good hooks. I was able to, but everything was disorganized,
Okay.
because I didn't really understand what it meant to write structured lyrics and write structured instrumental pieces, and how hooks should be structured in the song. And that's when I started realizing that, I mean, at that point, it was like I released my first batch of songs that I went and marketed, and I I was getting some traction, and then I actually pulled all of my music off of Spotify, and I mean all streaming platforms, because
Okay.
I wanted to take a whole new approach, and I started going out and networking and going to open mics and trying to meet
Yeah.
people, trying to collaborate,
Yep.
trying to collaborate with different artists and different songwriters and producers. And eventually I got there. I started working with the songwriter who toured with the Killers. I worked with him for a while, and he taught me how to study Billboard #1 hits, and Billboard #1 hits all the way back to the Beatles from the last 50 years,
Right.
and how each of those songs have components of what he called a pop structure, right, that makes them popular today. And that's what you really want, is that lasting power with your music.
Sure.
So that's kind of that I kind of developed that side of my music, which was the songwriting and the structuring of the lyrics and the instrumental parts. And then I went and I actually met a producer who's in Nashville, Tennessee, who was helping me transition from being unstructured as well to kind of EDM, to electronic music. And he was helping me incorporate electronic elements that producers don't really know how to do until somebody else teaches it to them.
Right.
Most people have to go out, unless you go to school for this. It's like you have to go out and have someone show you how to do some of these things, or do it and kind of try to pick things up on your own.
Well, you mentioned something, the networking piece. Like I said, I teach sales, and I've had great success in networking, right? I think networking is king. You can do all the marketing you want and all that. If you're not face to face with people, and
Right.
this is one of the things your generation, there's a concern about your generation is not having the ability to communicate with people effectively,
Right.
because they have heads in their phone all the time, right? And being able to shake that hand and look at someone in the face and find those people that can help you and be willing to ask for the help, because everybody wants to help you. They all want to see you succeed. But if they don't know you're out there and you're not out there in front of them, you know, you're not going to get any traction.
Right.
But your parents being in business and your mom being in sales, this is another great talent that people don't really think it's a talent. They think, oh, he's just a natural salesman. No, you got to study, man. You're a psychologist out there,
right.
when you're talking to people, and you've got to be able to determine their attitude within 10 seconds of when you meet them, and how to approach them and what to say. But
right.
yeah, this is amazing. You're learning so much. Like, your parents are so right about, because you could end up being, I don't know, and owning a bank or whatever. And all these elements are going to be applicable in that bank too.
Right. No, I think my dad for that, honestly, like, I mean, my dad has never been one to stray from the point. He's always kind of given it to me straight, and
yeah, good.
Told me where I'm deficient. Right. I think that for a while he kind of mentioned how I didn't have this hustle, and that, like, I wasn't going to make it if I didn't go out there and really network and meet people, find people who are going to mentor me so that I can learn and get better. Right. Yeah. So after that, it was really a turning point in everything that I've done in the last several years. Is really, when I started going out there and I started meeting people, I started talking to people, I was like, I had to make a conscious effort to push myself to go meet that extra person and go talk to the people that I was nervous to talk to at that point. Right. Because I didn't know what am I going to say to them? Right. What do I have to offer? I didn't really, but I finally, I kind of figured these things out, and that was thanks to my dad. And then at that point I started bringing on people, and that's when I started building my record label. So Damani Records is now, we've worked with several artists, independent artists who've helped market, and it's I've started working with this other artist who is proficient in Facebook ads and a lot of social media marketing. Good. So he's helping me a lot with that. And over the last year, it's been really fine-tuning my product, refining my product, my music, my art, so that I can get that to the broader audience that I want to show it to. But to be able to do that, and to be able to appeal to this audience, to be able to appeal to any demographic, to be able to, I had to really get my music to the point where it was structurally sound, and all of those, the sound was radio quality, right? If somebody hears my song on the radio, they're gonna say, wow, this, like, I mean, it may not be their favorite. For some people it may be their favorite, right? But either way, they're gonna say that this song sounds similar to the rest of the songs on the radio. It fits, right? So I was
that Eddie Van Halen, you know, as soon as Eddie Van Halen strummed his guitar, you're like, well, that's Van Halen. I mean, you didn't have to listen to 5 notes. You knew that this guy, that's who, and yet I talk a lot about marketing and sales being very different professions, and a lot of sales guys don't get that. Salespeople, they're like, no, because I went to work for a company and they had a sales and marketing manager, and I said, you know, those are 2 different jobs. You understand? And the guy was like, no. I said, no, they are. Marketing is very much about credibility, about that foundational stuff, all the stuff you're just talking about. Sales is about those relationships you build, and that closing and all the stuff that goes along with sales. But this is really interesting. So I have a daughter that wanted to be a singer, right? And I encouraged her all the time. I said, like, no plan B if you want to sing. And she sings well. She ended up not doing that, but it was okay. I wanted to encourage her to do that. Same with the art that my grandson and my daughter does.
Right.
And she was not even close, obviously, to the thought process that you're at right now. But this record label, are you actually signing artists under your record label?
No. So
I don't know how that works. So
yeah. So it's not at the point where I'd call it a nonprofit right now.
So is this podcast. Isn't that interesting? This podcast is nonprofit too.
Right. I'm sure we'll get there one day, but
yeah.
But I've been working with a lot of different artists and kind of releasing under Damani Records when I release my music.
Okay, good.
So I think that it was more of the kind of concept of developing a brand, right? Developing something that
Yeah.
It's about the message, right? That kind of goes back to my music, right? It's like I want it's a thing that a lot of music nowadays lacks, is a message, is a story, and the lyrics don't have much substance. um and I think that that's kind of why I wanted to really incorporate this uplifting message. I don't curse in any of my music because I feel like that just
Good.
takes away from the point, right? The point is not to flood the song with cuss words. Um it's to really accentuate the themes, the morals that you can learn from music, which is something that's kind of been lost, and I kind of want to bring it back. So all of my collaborations, and no, I haven't had any collaborations with artists that have different goals in that. All of the artists have put together verses and parts
Okay.
that have supported that in terms of the actual lyrics that they write are structured to actually um support an uplifting and inspiring message.
Well, I like that, and I think that your generation and probably two generations back get a bad reputation for people in my age group, right? Just because, first of all, everybody in my age group thinks that all the 70s and 80s is the only music that was ever made. I don't get it. I listen to everything. And funny enough, I do listen to when I lift at the gym, I listen to a lot of rap and stuff because of the rhythm. I love the rhythm of the
Yeah.
and and I'm always looking for new music with that rhythmic piece, so I can, it's kind of a rhythm for me when I'm lifting or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm also in a business of branding. I sell promotional products and we make logos and we do all that stuff. Like my logo, that's the one you see that in everything that I have. It's on shoes. I got it in hats, shirts, everything.
Nice,
And
nice.
that branding is important too. Yeah.
Right.
That getting that name in front of people all the time. And then
Yeah.
you have the added benefit of putting that sound in front of people too.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's been a long journey, but it's really, I mean, so I released this album, I'm releasing this album soon, and this is kind of, I'm in the process of promoting my album right now. I just recently released my single In the End that I talked about at the Thai program,
Yeah,
and it charted number 61 on the
dude,
iTunes pop
that
charts.
is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I was really pumped. It was cool. It was a lot of it was good to see that hard work paying off, right? But
Do you
uh
feel like this is going to be your career for, let's say, for the next 10 years? I mean, you're young, you don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, but is this where you're headed? I mean, this is not a hobby. You're in
yeah.
this thing now.
No, yeah, definitely. I think that right now with school, it's been all about time management and
Yeah,
kind of balancing things, right?
sure.
I think that honestly, I mean, the music industry is a huge bet,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Going into the music industry and dropping everything and not going to school and doing those things is a really big bet. And I'm not sure if I'm necessarily willing to drop everything for music now. I'm putting a lot of time into it, but I think that I want to do it to the point where I can support it financially myself
Uh-huh.
going into my mid and late 20s, and do it through college and perform and do all these things, kind of, I mean, developing even further, right? Making my music better throughout all that time, to the point where I can have something to fall back on, that's
Sure.
a STEM major or something where I can go out and make money, right? And then kind of and then be able to put that back into my music because I love it, right? It's my passion. I'd love to blow up, but unfortunately that's not how things work. There's a um, there's an aspect of luck and timing and all of it, right?
Well,
So
of
that's why.
course. And there in any profession, there's that is, and yes,
Right.
it's a 1 in a million shot, or 1 in 100 million, doesn't matter.
Right.
If you're just putting this effort into it. And I gotta say, I'm not taking anything away from you, but thank God your parents are supportive, because it makes it easier, right? And
Right.
if you had to fight the system,
Right.
it'd be a lot harder. But this is so exciting. When I heard you about 10 seconds into you talking at that thing, I'm like, no, I got to talk to this kid, because you have great communication skills. And this could, man, dude, this could open up so many doors for you, and so many different levels, what you're doing. And I can't wait till that, that comes out. I've listened to a little bit what I could find, but I want to hear this album. I want to see what, this could be my next gym stuff for like the next year as I'm working at. I could be putting Damani swag on and hats.
Yo, that's what I like to hear. No, I appreciate the kind words.
Oh, dude, you're killing it. I love this. Yeah. I can't wait till I have one of my future son-in-laws was when I met him, he played in the band and they were actually pretty good. And I used to listen to his music a little bit, and they've been since and had a child, and he's working a lot. I know he's dying to get back into that, but it just doesn't fit his life right now. So
yeah,
he'll be interested in listening to this podcast, I'm sure.
yeah. No, I'm gonna make sure to share this as well.
So what did the young entrepreneurs do for you? What do you think how did they help you out, that organization?
Yeah. So the last couple of years playing into the whole theme of business, right? I've with the record label, I've also wanted to kind of learn business in a more fundamental way. My dad and I have my mom and dad and I have talked about kind of my path for college and what I want to do to get to the college that I want to be at. I'm not sure exactly what that is yet, but I've attended several business programs now, and the Thai program was one of the business programs I attended that it was actually the first business, I think the first or second business program that I attended. And I think it really helped me in terms of we put together it was a group of students who put together a marketing plan and learn how to distribute and do all these things that I'm talking about that I was also doing in my label. So it kind of played hand in hand. It helped me get better at the other things that I was doing as well, which is why I think it was really helpful to go to this program and learn some of those fundamental things, and then also learn from a lot of the mentors and speakers that they had there who were really profound, interesting people to listen to. So
no, it's a great
helped me in all sorts of things, for sure.
I kind of got introduced to it on accident. They were going to use the podcast to advertise. It's one of the reasons we're doing this. And then as I started meeting some of these kids, Gary, he was one of the kids. He was one of our interns at Brilliant Marketing Ideas last summer. Okay. And real impressed with Gary too. Gary's outgoing, very forward, well-spoken, doesn't have any problem communicating guy. So here, my advice to my kids, it's always, there's a lot to learn out there, right? Just keep your ears open. And I think I kept my mouth shut for, a little too long. I think I started picking stuff up, but still respectful of my, mentors and my leaders and things like that. But I can't tell you how, and I know you know this, but I just want to reiterate, I can't tell you how valuable this education you're getting outside of school is for you, because most kids aren't getting it, and they're not, believe me, when you get to that age where you're out in the world and your parents aren't really there to, this is going to pay off hugely when you're able to communicate with the world's not very pretty, right? Sometimes. And this is going to prepare you for a lot of things out there.
Well, I mean, and I think that's sort of a message I try to get across to my music as well, right? Like I'm trying to resonate with kids my age and kind of really nail in this, I'm nailing this message. I'm grinding right now. Like you have to grind, you have to persevere, you have to be tenacious, right? Like that's what I talked about at the Thai program is I just talked about it now, the long process that it took to get here. And I haven't necessarily succeeded yet, right? But I'm getting to a point where now I have a rhythm, right? I have a flow, and kind of I've gotten to a comfortable place where I can I understand the process of releasing music and producing music, and it took a long time to get here, right? Even to do this, and then I'm sure it's another level of hard work, and that's going to go into me reaching growing my fan base to a point where I can make this my day job, right? Yeah. But I think that that's a really important message that I want to get out there, and that's why I talk about what you just said a lot in my music as well.
Well, and the idea of this whole podcast was my daughter encouraged me to do this because I do resonate a lot with younger people, right? I don't look like a normal business guy. I got tattoos and I'm able to and I'm open-minded. I want to learn about what these kids are trying to do, and give them some advice on some of those pitfalls you're going to run into. Look, every person you meet in your life that's really successful worked their ass off. I don't care what they're doing. They worked hard to get there, whether it's a construction guy, a carpenter, a doctor. My son's a cybersecurity guy. Tons of work to get to that point. You cannot get anywhere in life without working hard, period. Exclamation point. Unless you inherit money, and I didn't, and most people don't, you're going to be stuck with working hard. Right. And that's what I try to get across to kids too. And that's that life balance too. Once you have relationships, and you got to be able to balance your life, you have to be selfish once in a while and kind of get your path going so you can help other people, right? It's that putting the oxygen mask on first so you can help other people around you. And and I think that's kind of what you're doing. And like I said, God bless your parents for helping you out and getting you going in the right direction. And it doesn't matter what happens in the future, as long as you know that you have to work hard for whatever you get. And one of the points I was going to make about, so during the Super Bowl, right? Did you see the Super Bowl halftime, right? Everybody saw it. Very controversial at some level, and other people loved it. So I'm old, right? So I'm on Facebook. And of course, all my friends, they hated it, right? They just hated it. If you look at the history of these people that were on, these weren't kids that were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, right? I remember, I think it was Rihanna or something said once that she worked 20 hours a day, on her music, and she barely slept. And whether you love her, hate her, like her music, hate her music, you can't take that hard work away. She's built an empire,
right, by
putting in the time, right? And so did all those guys on that Super Bowl show. So I liked it. That's kind of the music I listen to when I'm working out. So to me, it was fine. I also respect the fact that these guys, I call them kids, they're not that much younger than me. Dr. Dre's were close in age, but they just worked so hard to get where they're at. And you gotta have respect for that, at least.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, I think it's also important to mention, like, I think especially where I live, right, and this kind of going to private school and being around San Diego, being around a lot of wealthy people, there's this bubble, right? There's this bubble of a lot of kids who inherit money and are not driven. Sure. And I think that that's also why it's something that I've tried to focus on in terms of my music. Like I was handed a lot of things. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, right? Like I came from I came from financial means. My parents have the financial means to support my music and to send me to private school, right? But I'm taking advantage of that. And that's what I want to get across to other people is, like, just because you have something, I mean, you should want to go create something for yourself. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah. And so I grew up in Poway, right?
Yeah.
We had a very wealthy area of Poway, and area where I came from, which we weren't poor, but we didn't have the money they had, Right. Those kids drove nicer cars than teachers to school, right? It's just that way.
Yeah.
But there was two different kinds of those kids. There were kids like you that worked their ass off, and you're like, dude, you got to respect what he's doing, right? I mean, and then there were the kids that did take advantage of that. And this is a funny thing. Since you're so young, it should be kind of entertaining to you. So there was no computers when I was in school, right? No cell phones, none of that. I have more friends on Facebook from high school now than I did when I was in high school. I mean, I have over 150, 200 friends in high school that I'm on Facebook with. And a lot of those kids that grew up in that area, those richer areas, they ended up just being like all of us, right? Something I always tell my kids, you wait 20 years after you get out of high school, everybody's back to normal, right? There's no egos. There's nothing. People have been divorced. They've had tragedies in their life. They have children. They've gained weight. They haven't, and yeah, I know you're not apologizing for having a good life and taking it, but you are working hard, dude. I don't look at you as, I would not, if I was a kid, I would not be looking at you going, yeah, he's got everything. He's lucky. Thank God. Listen, anybody who lives in the United States is lucky, right? That's the first thing we got to.
Right.
We have opportunities that nowhere in other parts of the world have.
Yeah.
Like I said, Joe, your parents aren't giving. You're having to learn. Your dad would smack you right upside the head if you weren't paying attention when he was teaching you, right? I mean,
Right.
I don't have to meet your parents to know that they're hard workers. It sounds like to me. So and like you said to me already, he doesn't let me off the hook. He tells me, "Hey, you're deficient here. You need to fix that," and that's good. That's love. That's because he loves you. That's why he's doing that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, listen, I'm impressed with you, bro. And I don't mean to make your head so big it won't fit in the camera, but I think that your parents have done a good job. You've done a good job at listening, and I think you have a good pulse on what's happening in your life. And I love to, man, I'm going to follow you as much as I can on social media and that, so I can see where you end up, because you're what I'm trying to get people to believe in themselves, and I want them to know that they can do anything they want if they put their mind to it, put that work in, and do all those things. So, like I said, you're kind of you can be the poster boy for my podcast, but you got enough on your plate. So,
no, really,
anyway.
thank you for that. I know, I really appreciate it. That means a lot. And like I said, I've it's been a long. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more time to go, right? But it's been a long journey even getting here, and I'm looking forward to what's to come.
But if you look at the percentage of your life you've been spent doing this,
right,
that's a big percentage, right?
a big percentage, yeah.
So, and you can't control that, so that's what it is. So,
right.
Stay on here for a second. I'm going to do a little outro, and then I just want to chat with you for a minute, and I'll get you on your way. So,
sounds good.
Anyway, Damani, man, find his music on. Where can we find your music? On Apple, right?
Yeah. I can send you a link. It's on every streaming platform. I got it on.
Okay, do that. Send me a link, and then I will
Spotify,
I'll put it on when I advertise this out on my social media.
Cool. Yeah,
and then I'll send you a link to this so you can get it out there. So
sounds good.
I told you this was going to be a good podcast, guys. My name's Ed Franklin with the edfranklin.nolimits podcast. You can contact me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. And if you want to contact Damani, I'll have his link on everything, or you can email me, and then I'll hook you up with them. So anyway, thank you for listening. Please share this as much as you can, and everybody.